Welcome back once again to the Writer Brothers, your Thursday night source for general interest entertainment, where we discuss movies, games, shows, and occasionally even books. But don't worry, we're not going to bore you with any books tonight. This evening, we're going to discuss the latest episode of Apple TV's Severance. After that, we will talk about Daily Wire's latest and greatest, the Hyperions. Then we're going to discuss a little bit of GTA Online, and then our first impression of Black Desert Online. Today, I'm joined by my co-host slash co-producer, John. How are you doing today?
Absolutely wonderful. Happy Thursday to you, or as they say in olden times, happy Thorsday. I cannot wait to get into these conversations tonight.
I prefer Turds Day myself because it feels like a turd, and I just took a turd earlier and before the show, so I'm ready to go.
That's enough potty talk out of you.
No more bodily function discussion on this show. So Severance, episode 5. John, where do you want to start with this one?
I'm gonna let you open because I want to hear your thoughts. I thought this one was wild, but I felt like you had a different relationship with this one.
I was so my theories definitely changed a bit. I have a simpler feeling on this one regarding where the show's going and what it's doing. I paused it so right after the scene where I can't remember his name. It's like Ivan or Ivory.
Irving,
thank you. Yeah, he's got one of those names that always sounds different in my head. Where Irving gets that picture, that was a moment that I was like, I paused the show and I looked at Hannah and I go, okay, if everything that we have watched builds up to this, just them being rats in a maze, it will still be worth watching. And literally right after I started watching the show again, that's when the other character comes in, or goes to Patricia Arquette's character, and then says, that's when they have a little bit of a weird conversation where she says something along the lines of, "Oh, you ran a 256 on
Millicek, yes."
And I was like, "Yeah, it was Millicek." And I was like, "Oh, so they are just doing experiments on them." And I found that, like, I was blown away by how much they kind of did a lot more exposition in this one, but also kept the suspense than I was expecting.
I got a different feeling from that scene. I didn't really feel like it was an experiment so much as a test. Like, A, it's number 256 of what? And B, I really want to know of what, because that's a really messed up 256, and to see our first introduction into it, with that picture going crazy, I couldn't get over A, how grotesque it was, but also how historic, I guess would be the best word for it. Like, it was not a standard water painting, and it kind of explained what we discussed last week, like, why are the computers so old, right? Well, if you're gonna keep paintings like this, they're gonna start to quantify the difference and you see it later in the episode when he shows them the one where the badges are different. Like, one's the MacDot group and one's the painting group. And the MacDot group were like, no, the painting group was the one that was attacking us in the picture that I saw. That's what Irving saw. But then when Irving's looking at the other one, it's the MacDot group attacking the painting group. So when they say it's a 256, I didn't really see it as an experiment so much as like a psychological test. Like, they wanted to see if he was going to, I don't know. Like, I based off the scenes where Irving just sees the world melting, I got the vibe that he's either getting ready to be forcibly retired, or he is, back to the experiment thing again now. He could be the first of the guinea pigs, and like, he's having the most residual effects, whereas everybody else has never seen the sky melt. Especially that scene where Mark turned around and his eye was like oozing that black stuff. that one made me queasy immediately because I didn't expect it. Like, I thought seeing Mark's normal face was what would be the thing that snapped him out, and it wasn't. And I was like, that's gross.
Well, the painting sequence was very... Maybe there was more there that we missed, because the painting sequence, he reacts to the first one, and then we find out that it was intentionally sent to him. Like he has a visible, disturbing reaction. But then he sees this, and he's like, "Oh, calm down, Dylan. This isn't the same thing. It's different." And he doesn't even react the same. He doesn't react similar. He's literally very nonchalant about it. Like, dude, it's no big deal.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, and so it's almost like there was something maybe subliminal in that first message that was accidentally sent to him, and he just didn't understand it was something in that first image triggered something that was not triggered here. Yet when Dylan saw this other picture, he was the one that was bothered by it and was like, "See, they got the same image, it's right here." And Irving's like, "No, it's not the same image, it's different."
Well, and not to mention, like, Irving was not only visibly, like, distraught by what he was seeing, but he kind of felt like he caused it because he tried to print the map. But if you notice, now that we're bringing up all these things about, like, what we could have missed, there was 2 pictures printed, and Milicek only took one of them, but they were both the same photo. So what if printing the map, and, like, these printers have some kind of, like, scan before you print function that can detect what you're about to print and deny you and print you something else? Like, what if it wasn't, the 256 was triggered by Milicek, but also by the photo he attempted to copy, because it was the map that they were keeping hidden in secret. But, like, to me, that was the first thing that scared him. Like, oh, I didn't print this. Oh, that's really gross. And then Milicek just comes up behind him, and he's like, he's still, like, disturbed, and it seemed like he forgot about the map. So
yeah,
all of those pieces feel like there's so much more that we saw, but didn't add up until the next episode, and then maybe even the rewatch we'll be able to finally put all these lines together.
Yeah, Super Gamecraft in the chat with some Canadian flags, which does bring up a interesting point. Unfortunately, our guest tonight, Carry On, Witch in Residence, was unable to join us due to some, don't know the specifics, just some family circumstance. So just a quick shout out to our buddy Carry On. Well wishes. Hope everything gets resolved. And we'll hope to see you back here next week. Yeah, I honestly, a lot of what was going on in this episode certainly raised a bunch more questions and definitely gives the illusion that something is clearly going on that we're not being told about. I mean, that's pretty much the whole show, but it's almost
Seriously.
like, I think it's going to be somewhere in between what Carry On's suggesting with, it's something that could be a gray area, and that's very possible, but it's also entirely possible that whatever the gray area is, it's just going to be achieved through random experimentation of humans, and that's what they're doing. It is a psychological experiment on the human brain. Is basically what this show is about in a lot of ways. I mean, it's about a lot of things. There's a lot of commentary to both in this show. What I found interesting was also the scene where Mark goes and grabs his book out, and Milicek was over his shoulder, and it's like, he saw him with the book, but he didn't.
That wasn't Milicek. That was the counselor.
Or that's right, it was the counselor. I got my sequences confused. Okay, but she clearly saw it from her vantage point. Okay, that's like literally one of those movie magic moments that is so painfully obvious. There's no way that she didn't notice the book was there, but obviously didn't do anything about it because they left it for him to find. That's my point about why I think why ultimately, at the very least, that's where the show started, was rats in a maze. And how do we make humans participate willingly as rats in a maze? Oh, well, you make them forget that they don't work for 8 hours a day, or that they work for 8 hours a day. You make them forget that experience, then you can do whatever you want. That's why we see messed up things like the break room, because they're trying to control people without having to physically abuse them. It's all mental abuse. It's all mind games. And that's really what makes this show so riveting, is that, there's no violence. I mean, there's like, I guess, mild violence when Helly threw the thing at Mark in the first episode. But that's it. There's no grotesque violence. There's no... they kind of swear a lot, but it's very calculated. Super Gamecraft in the chat. Mental abuse is common. We all work day jobs.
Good point.
This show amplifies it by a factor of 11.
One question I have for you is, why do you feel like you are what's the word I'm looking for? Do you feel like you're actually learning more as we watch? Do you feel like you know more about the world?
Honestly, I do not. I think there's more questions.
Not really think, but feel. Like watching it, do you feel like you can remember last week's episode and feel like you're getting questions answered even though you're getting more questions?
Yeah, I feel like it's doing a good job of giving us a little bit more into the insight, but then it's also like feeding us more cliffhangers. Like the data entry room, they literally all went in there, and they're gonna meet the people, and we'll see how that interaction goes tonight. And so it's doing a very good job narratively of giving us enough information to keep us interested. But then, but what's interesting is to see what's going to happen next, because, I don't want to give spoilers off the IMDb, so never mind. I'm not going to go that route.
That's what I really think is what makes this show such a good show, is because I feel like I don't know anything, even though I've watched 5 episodes in a row trying to figure everything out, and I watch them a couple times to be ready for these episodes for our show, and yet I don't feel cheated, but I only feel completely more in the dark. And that's such a fun feeling to get from watching something, especially lately, because it feels like it's been rare where a TV show especially has been able to be as adventurous as The Office while simultaneously making me as confused and ready for the next episode as Game of Thrones.
Right. Right.
And it's a weird spot to be.
Well, and I mentioned it on previous episodes, and I definitely kind of have that sort of fear in the back of my mind that this show is just going to turn out to be more mystery box writing, but that's just it. It doesn't feel like it's doing heavy on the mystery box, as it feels like it's definitely using mystery box writing to keep you interested, but it's also giving more insight to the characters and to the world that you don't really get that with mystery box writing. Mystery box writing just gets more and more mysterious, and then by the end of like a season, you're like, so what exactly happened? And you ask the producers, and they go, well, what do you think's gonna happen? And then they have like a notepad, and they're like, just wanted to write down your notes so they can produce season 2.
I don't get that vibe.
I don't know. Game of Thrones put me in a freaking coma. I need to censor the Twitter or the Twitch chat.
What I mean more along the lines of Game of Thrones is I didn't watch it week to week because it's a very slow drumming show, but in terms of who started what and why, literally in the first episode of Game of Thrones, you learn the entire goals of everybody, except you just don't think that they're going to be that obvious. And then as you watch the show, it doesn't match at all as episode 1. It also doesn't match Lord of the Rings. It also doesn't match any other fantasy genre you've ever seen before.
It matches Lord of the Rings. They killed Sean Bean.
Yeah, but Sean Bean was killed at the
for Game of Thrones
end.
Season 1 if you're like one of the 3 people who hasn't watched that show.
They basically did. I mean, if you were to put the 2 timelines in just order of events, Sean Bean dying at the end of each episode was the major climax.
Let's not get too off track here. I think the point you're trying to make is, at least with Game of Thrones, like the first couple seasons are admittedly well written and well thought out.
No,
and that's
the real point I'm just trying to make is that the Game of Thrones series sparked so many film and fan theory websites, podcasts, YouTube channels, and you're absolutely right, because Lost did the same thing and lost it in the end. And same thing happened with Game of Thrones, is they lost it, because Game of Thrones, like George R.R. Martin wasn't done. He was still finishing out his vision, sussing some things out, and then some other people just took the helm as fans. Like, they were fans writing fanfic, and they wrote their version of a good ending, and that's why the majority of us didn't like it, and that's where Lost itself, and that's where this one is doing itself a service, because it doesn't exist anywhere except for the next episode and the last episode. It doesn't have a book to follow, and as far as we know, it may not even care about season 2. And that's wild.
I don't know how this season's going to end. There's scenes in here that we haven't even gotten to, and there's implications of what this show is implying that we haven't touched on. And that's really what I'm liking about it a lot, is it's doing a good job of giving us the mystery, but also enough satisfying resolution each week that we want to come back for more, but we don't feel. I haven't felt insulted by this show, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't feel like anybody of any real intelligence range is going to feel inadequate. Like, some people might feel lost more than others, but it's not a hard one to follow once you grasp the basic concept.
No,
and I think that's what I like about it, is it tries to be respectful of its audience. It's just trying to tell a story. It's not trying to hammer you with ideals so much. It's just, like I said, it's great social commentary on the corporate world. Not even really corporate world, but just the work world in general. How many people? I've seen a meme before, and I think Bronson from Super Gamecraft shared it once, and it really stuck with me. Was going into work in PC time. And I think that's a very appropriate comparison for this show, because that's basically what you're doing, is you're shutting your brain down, your memories down. You're creating a different personality that literally, even Helly went so far as to say, you're not a real person. And so it's almost like they took the NPC meme and made it into a show. And that's what it's about, is being at work as a non-playable character, because that's what these are. They have their memories from the time they go into work and leave work.
That's such a weird analogy that definitely describes the show. But if you think about it in terms of like NPCs know what they're doing internally. Like, their code is written the way that it's written. So they have a function, they know what that function is, and they know they're going to complete it. But they have no idea what the world around them is or why they do what they do. They just know what their code tells them. And that's literally what these people are, is their code tells them what jobs they need to do, what to do. And then they get debugged even they're getting QA tested. That's what Militech did, if you think about it in just terms of like process. Militech did a QA test on Irving to see what would happen. He knew that something could happen, should happen, and might happen, but he still needed to run the functions check. And I think that's that's a really good analogy, but also it changes the whole dynamic of the show, because it could be a little bit in terms of mystery box, but it really feels more along the lines of like the writers are trying to get us to create our own mystery boxes, rather than
they already have a plan.
Yeah, I feel like one of them knows everything that's going on, and it could be something as innocuous as, yeah, we just make dental products, we just cannot let the recipe out. And it doesn't even, that wouldn't be a disappointing end, you know?
No, definitely
Which is weird, because like, if you think about it, now all we want is more mind games. And so they could literally just have a world of different innocuous companies and products being protected by some super crazy manipulators, which is fun.
Honestly, if this show breaks the fourth wall and basically says that we were the rats in the maze the whole time, I'll be impressed.
I'll say yes.
It's okay. Then so leading back to the rats in the maze, which is basically what Mark and Helly were, literally rats running around in a maze. What is this? What? I saw this scene and I was like, Hannah's theory was that I guess this is where they send the broken ones, and I don't know.
I don't think so. I think this
baby goats are called kids. So is this like, what's going on here? I want to know what you think is going on here.
This could very much be something similar to what they're doing with Irving. This could be like a 254 or a 259, you know? Yeah. Because or like what they're 69. If you remember, oh man, Miss Cobell tells Millicek asks, not Millicek, the other security guy.
Oh yeah.
Michael Comsty as Mr. Grainer. Mr. Grainer asks Cobell what she's doing and like acknowledge it. Like she knew for a fact that they were gonna walk into this room and she's the one that left the door open somehow. So like that rats in the maze thing definitely it just could be, it's not really like an experiment so much as it is a quality test. Like we got to double check that these people are in the right spaces. Each one needs a certain amount of things to be the most productive, and that's why everybody is segregated in the way they are. Like the 4 Macrodot people, they could literally just be the people that work really well in teams of 4 with with constant supervision. Versus like this guy
assuming
with the
they're doing anything worthwhile at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like they could do literally the most mundane task in the world as long as there's just 4 of them and they have constant supervision with the appearance of being able to be rebellious. Like, and that's like, rather than it being like devious and they're trying to like experiment on these people, it's like they've already mastered social manipulation and they're like choreographing their day-to-day.
Yeah, and it's weird because we have that scene that plays out and it's like they know they're being watched. We've seen the break room, right? We know what the break room is. And yet we think, oh, these guys are, you know, they're reading contraband, they're interacting with other departments, which we're under the assumption you're not supposed to do, but now you can. So obviously they're being watched, but the only time that they've been taken to the break room is when they've tried to leave, when they try to escape. You know, the first time Helly tried to escape and Mark ends up going to the break room on her behalf. Oh, also Super Gamecraft in the chat. So speaking Apple TV shows, when are you going to the real star of that platform, Ted Lasso? We're going to double check and look into that. I've heard good things about it. It's just right now Severance is our big thing, and we're also tracking other stuff. And so we'll definitely do a block on that show, especially probably when it gets closer to its next season premiere. I assume it's still on the air. I don't hear anything about it only being 1 or 2 seasons. So we will be looking into Ted Lasso, absolutely.
Yeah, we're definitely going to discuss it because it is absolutely the star of Apple TV. It's one of the most wholesome sports comedies in the entire universe. Wonderful show, and I cannot wait for season 3.
Well, then we will, we'll discuss that as we get closer to that. But in the meantime, with Severance, this show is, like I said, that's why I feel like it's rats in a maze, because they're watching them behave this way. And that's why I almost wonder if the work they're doing really isn't anything except, you know, Carrie On brought up the moral gray area, which that can make for a very strong ending if it's executed properly. And I think that's very possible that we'll still get that moral gray area while also dealing with this just being, so when I say it's just rats in a maze, I don't mean to like downplay the show or the significance. It being rats in a maze and trying to use certain mental manipulation and mental abuse to incite or to force conformity is still along the lines of turning out to have a morally gray ending.
And not to mention their depiction of it is still 100% quality. Like, if it is just rats in a maze, this is the most elaborate version of rats in a maze I've ever seen or heard of. So, like, I agree with you. I just keep getting all these thoughts, especially watching this trailer and thinking about what's to come and what it could be. And I came up with this idea about, what if it's rats in a maze and what the information that they're selling is actually the results of these studies, so that other people don't have to be this intense and they can still do some degree of social manipulation, but this is like their way of finding the most effective.
They're trying to take a person that has all of the education and all of the skills of being a person, all of the training, all of the education,
Creativity.
but they're trying to basically take a full-grown adult that has no concept of any other life and then see what they can get away with. That's what I feel is really going on here. And you're right. You're probably right. That's exactly what the caveat is of this show, is that they're basically selling the information to other corporations to say, here is how you can get away with mentally abusing your workers, but also keeping them productive. So, this is what I love about good sci-fi, and that's why I still feel like, this isn't just basic mystery box writing, because they're not writing the show based off of our review, or at least I hope they're not changing episodes based off our review. They've already, it feels like they have an ending planned. A lot of this feels like they already have 2 seasons planned out. Apple TV's already signed off on them, so it sounds like whatever stories they're going to tell, whether or not this story wraps up with these characters and moves on to something else, it remains to be seen. But I love coming back every week. I love talking about this show every week because it really gets you to think. And that's what I said, is like, it's not an insult to the audience. I don't feel like, I'm certainly the last person to go full elitist on anybody who doesn't watch Severance. Because if you don't like it, you don't like it, that's fine. But like I said, I think anyone can sit down and watch this show because it's relatable. Everybody has worked a crappy job at least once in their life. And if you haven't, you're probably like in the 2% of humans that haven't done that, which, whatever, that's fine. Everybody's had a job where you just want to turn your brain off and just go into a work mode. This isn't a concept that is like fresh or new. It's new in the sense that nobody's put it on screen before, and they're doing it in such a awesome way that really gets you to think and really gets a lot of thought-provoking questions and analysis going. And so that's what I love about this show is you know what? I think I'm kind of getting to the point, and I don't want to come off as like an apologist or an excuse, pre-excuse the show, because I don't think it's going to be a bad ending. I am confident that this show's, or at the very least, season 1's ending will be satisfying enough. I feel like this is a good show to watch and worth the time. I'm just getting to the point where so much has already happened, so much has already been explored, and we've even discussed a lot on this show, that it's just worth watching regardless of how it ends. I'm not saying that as an excuse to have a bad ending. I'm just like, that's how good this show has become, is that, you know what, it actually is kind of worth the ride. And that's where my thoughts are. So I'm enjoying it. It's great. I love the discussion. Any more thoughts before we move on to our next subject?
Yeah, just one quick thing. If we lost our streamers, it's because YouTube's saying that supposedly we are using copyrighted material, which we are not. We are using the already advertised material. But it should come back to us here in a second. Come back to you on YouTube in a second. Twitch seems to still be active and working functionally. So on that, I would just...
why we got slapped with a copyright, because I'm literally just playing stuff that's advertised openly.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure we note that, because we are seeing it, we are experiencing it. We are taking care of it.
That was from the official Apple TV, so they might just have an auto setting on there, but thanks for catching that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, audience. We were discussing Apple TV Severance by using their theme song, and they decided they didn't want us on the air for some reason. So we'll try to see if we can get the YouTube stream back up.
Double checking now. Sorry, Twitch fans. We are in maintenance mode for a moment. Teamwork makes the dream work, though. While we're trying to get this fixed up, I do think Ted Lasso is a phenomenal show. I think Apple TV is definitely taking the time to pay for quality content from its writers.
Yeah.
And I think they were one of the few like platforms that knew they were going to stream a service sooner rather than later. And when they decided to do that, they I feel like they're the ones that actually planned for it. They went and bought all the writers. They used their multi-billions of trillions of dollars, and they actually took the time to find people that wanted to write new things. And that's why I say Ted Lasso is so phenomenal, is because in terms of sports comedy, it is equal to Severance in its relationship with science fiction. Like, you wouldn't expect it to be sports or comedy because it has very little of either, while simultaneously giving you all of it. Like, feeling like you're learning about a sport you never would have cared about, like soccer, or, as they say in Ted Lasso, football. And looks like we are back on our.
All right,
stream.
YouTube's back up and running, which whatever.
We'll
have to look into that because I don't play the unapproved materials. I just play what's approved, unless for some reason they want to pull copyright on the intro, which if that's the case, then fine, I'll just play the trailer from now on.
Also, not forget to blame algorithms if it's just overzealous algorithms.
It sounds like overzealous algorithms, which, okay, sorry for the free advertising.
You're a bad algorithm.
Anyway, I get it. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to take a quick moment to touch on it. Okay, I'm an independent content creator. I probably would feel a little angry about having some of my stuff stolen and sold for free. That's not what we're doing here. We are trying to bring awareness to shows that we like. We are trying to get people excited about shows. And one of the ways that I personally get excited about shows is the theme song. HBO, great marketing campaign, throwing your theme song out there just so people could watch. I don't necessarily want to be too forthright about it, but I did watch it. I did watch the theme by itself on occasion in between episodes, just because it was good. It was an enjoyable piece to watch. So that's one way that I was excited about watching the show. So, sorry if I was trying to get people excited to watch Severance by just playing the theme back and forth over and over. Won't happen again.
To any overzealous copyright groups and people that want to say we're infringing copyright, we're literally offering your clients free word-of-mouth discussion about our love for the product. So, no, that's not what we're doing. So we're going to go ahead and
switch to one that if we get hit with a copyright, I'm going to send out an angry email.
Yes.
You may not agree with their politics, and if you've watched anything on the Fox network in the last 20 years, well, you've inadvertently supported Fox News, so congratulations. The Hyperions is the latest from the up-and-coming entertainment distributor, The Daily Wire. And I gotta say, from what I saw production-wise, with what I think was working within a very tight budget, or at least a low budget, I loved it. It didn't feel that way at first, but I think after thinking about it, after watching it, and after just stewing on it, this was a good sign of things to come from Daily Wire. But John, I'll go ahead and let you take over for a minute.
Yeah, just jumping on straight into the Hyperions. The casting was phenomenal. There were definitely, like, you could see the budget, and to me, it just really felt like in the light saturation, which is weird that would be the thing that I would notice the most. But what I will say is this movie was really fun. It was, they worked within their budget. They chose superpowers that didn't have to be extreme, and they did a lot of really good writing in terms of you didn't really care to see the superpowers once you found out why they were all dealing with anything. And I felt like that was a really smart move, because this felt more like the emotional, what's it called the emotional wrap up of what the Umbrella Academy on Netflix could end up looking something similar to. Because like in the Umbrella Academy, we have a lot of people that are in their mid to late 20s finally realizing who their dad was. But in this one, dad's still alive. And it turns out dad didn't know who he was. And that's a really fun concept that I haven't seen before. And especially in superheroes. Definitely not the coolest costumes. Definitely one of the easiest explanations of how they got their power and why only they got their power. But still fun. Because, like, Spider-Man's about a kid who got bit by a magical spider. The Hulk is a guy who poisoned himself with gamma radiation. Like, it doesn't really matter how they get their power, why they get their power, or why they're the only ones that got their power, necessarily. As long as you write something more fun around it, something more worth listening to and learning about. And this one did that. It broke a lot of genres in terms of like film. It was superheroes, but also a heist, but also a moral dilemma, but also a family, like a dysfunctional family. And it took the perspectives that I don't think we've ever actually seen from a quality show. So it was really fun.
Yeah, there were a lot of good things going for this. I mean, first of all, we can just start with what a wholesome movie this was. There's no sexualization of anybody. There's like hardly any swearing. And it's still just a really, like, I was surprised by this because the trailer shows you, oh, it's going to be a retro 70s style superhero movie, and it's just, you know, it's going to have silliness and cheesiness, which they definitely played up and played perfectly. But that's not what it's about. This is definitely a movie that takes advantage of the era that it's in, where, you know, cape movies are literally coming out like every other week, it feels like. And they wanted to tell a very wholesome father-daughter story. And they did an excellent job. I was very impressed with the writing of how all the characters played off each other and how the story revealed its elements, because you have no idea what's going on. And then, even then, it was like the entire point of the show wasn't necessarily the reason for their kidnapping. The entire point of the movie was about the dysfunction of the family relationships. And I also loved the fact that they brought back some classic writing tropes that I think have become a lost art in the last 10 years. And that's where they don't tell you everything. You have to watch the visuals and kind of make your own decisions for yourself. Like that last scene where they have that telepathic conversation, you don't really know what happens. And then they kind of seem to imply that, oh, maybe he died, but we don't know, because it's not really the point of the story. And I think some people are going to complain about it. They're going to be like, oh, it didn't explain X, Y, and Z, which, I mean, honestly, if you need an explanation for everything, then I would recommend a book. Which brings us to our sponsored segment. This stream tonight is brought to you by me! If you want to continue to support independent content much like this, or original stories that have a lot of originality to them, or at least aren't controlled by corporations and won't force you to watch your favorite characters go by the wayside, then you can help me and other authors like myself and pick up a copy of Galaxia today. I also have an audiobook version that I put in, that I also wrote myself, or that I also did the voices for myself, and I produced and edited it. All right, and now back to the show. So the Hyperions really does a great job of giving you a story that doesn't require, that leaves some things open-ended, but it's not like super critical points because you kind of get enough of the idea. The core of the story is there. It's well done. It's well acted by everybody. I mean, I can't say this guy's name to save my life. I'm going to butcher it, but bringing in Carrie Elwes, I don't know how you say his name. One of my personal favorite actors. I've always liked him in everything I've seen him in. Princess Bride, Robin Hood Men in Tights. Those are the two movies that have come to mind. He just gave it his all in this show, and it was believable. He felt like he just belonged in that era. We talked about it offline, John. This was when he wasn't playing himself. This was kind of like, you could tell it was the character you're used to seeing on Princess Bride and Robin Hood Men in Tights. But at the same time, this was something not only new, but brilliant. And he did an excellent job. I mean, it's safe to say he pretty much carried the film in a lot of ways. Every scene he was in was, I would almost say perfect, but it was definitely good.
I only kind of disagree with you on two of those points. One, I feel like he very much was the same character from, not Princess Bride, was the second one you said?
Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Robin Hood, yes. So he's very much Robin Hood in the sense of he knew that what he was doing was for the greater good in total. But I think where and this is why I only kind of disagree with you on this point, is that we also finally got to see what would happen if Robin Hood took off the jokes. Like, he was finally
that's good analysis.
While he was trying to do good for goodness sake, he was doing a lot of bad that didn't feel like it mattered to him until suddenly it was ruining his entire empire. And he even tried to gaff it off. He tried to Robin Hood his way out of it. He's like, no, I'm the hero. I created heroes. Like, I don't deserve this mistreatment and this judgment, especially not from people that I helped. Like, I say, like, there's a lot of lines in this movie about like how the kids get their powers and who they are to him and why. And that's where I think this is the other point I disagree with. I don't think he carried the show. I think he carried the narrative for sure. But more in terms of he justified everything. Like, as far as ultimate villains go, even the one that started the entire events of the day wasn't really as bad as he was. And in order not to spoil anything, is why I'm trying to be intentionally vague, because I really do think you should see this, and especially if you enjoy things like the videos and cinematography from the tutorials of Fallout universe, where this movie had a few of those to like explain some things in quick events. And not only did they introduce / transition to those scenes, that exposition that like most movies will spend the first half hour explaining, this one glossed over with 1 to 5 minute explanation tutorials. It legit felt like I was watching a movie that I would actually sit my character down in Fallout and watch all 90 minutes of, and realize that I have now wasted an hour and a half of my character watching a movie, and I enjoyed every second of it. Because it's a fun movie. Like, I really
it's so good you would watch it inside another universe.
Exactly. But it also, like, it kind of felt like it vibed with that universe more than it does our universe, you know? Which is weird, because like, I don't know if there's any connection, but I felt one, and I love that I felt one to something that could be completely unconnected. And that's a really cool relationship between like what the author or the writers and the visual team decided to use. Because yeah, this looks really low budget, and it probably was, but they overcame it in some of the most unconventional and some things I just haven't seen since Fallout. And I thought that was really awesome. I thought it was really fun. But I also, I don't really think that the main character, or I don't think Carrie Ewells, I think it's Ewells, or Ewells. I don't think
Wes.
I don't think we've ever seen him before. Not like this. And I had the Psych episodes that he starred in. He was one of the most fun reoccurring characters / bad guys in that show. And this didn't feel like that guy either. Like, that's what he was doing between Robin Hood and this. And yet, I feel like I found a new actor. Like, he played a character that wasn't himself, and I think that's really cool. I think that was something I didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's really rewarding, the entire show, not to mention a lot of the subtext. There's scenes that explain why everything is the way that it is and how it all got to be as maligned and malignant as it is, while simultaneously never actually resolving any of that in some cases. And I think that's leaves it open for more. Like, like you said, we don't know if it ended with his death or if he went to sleep because, he was in a hospital bed. But we definitely know that, like, just because they said I love you finally doesn't mean all that trauma's gone.
Correct. And that's really what I liked about the show, was it really put emphasis on the dysfunction of families that have lots of money. See, the dad was like, you're so ungrateful because I set you up with all this money and retirement, and I gave you all these things. I let you be a superhero for a time. He has a disconnect with his family, especially with his daughter, because he doesn't realize that it's not about the money. It's not about what you provide. That's a small component of being a father. A father is more about trying to understand who your child is, because your child is a living being. It's a soul. It's not just, whereas some people might convince themselves that, if I had rich parents that just gave me stuff and left me alone, I'd be the happiest kid ever. And you might be for a little while, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter without the human interaction, without the relationship. And that's really what it comes down to. And that's why what I think he finally realizes at the end. I don't think he's, and of course, this is what's nice, is it's kind of non-spoiler because it's speculation. I don't think he's crying at the end because he dies. I think he's crying at the end because he finally, the regret sets in. He wishes that he had spent more time. It's not just the fact that the kids were being replaced with a younger generation. It's the fact that he put too much focus on the newer kids and forgot about the other ones and assumed that he could just throw money at them and that they would be grateful and that was enough.
Well,
I
felt that there was a lot more to that, especially in terms of what was described on the screen. And he was also maligned. Like, you talked about the dysfunction of rich families, and if you notice the scenes where the children are being replaced, the whole reason they're being replaced is because their media consultants are coming in and saying, your kids are giving you a bad image. And he assumes that he's already done everything for them and that they're going to be perfectly well off because he taught them how to fight. He taught them how to be independent. And you watch that because this show isn't about dependent children wanting daddy back. It's about children who never really felt loved by their father because their father kept being told to literally cease all contact. And their father was doing that because he cared a lot about his reputation, but also, like I said earlier, for the greater good. He was creating superheroes. Like, this isn't a guy running an oil conglomerate. This is a guy running a hero conglomerate. And he felt that he was saving more lives than he was destroying. And it wasn't until the end that he realized that, like we watch him constantly justify why he doesn't respond to his kids. Oh, they're probably just asking for more money. Oh, those greedy little punks. And nobody, like, at no point have we seen these kids act greedy. They're not even asking dad for anything except for his presence, because it's literally necessary to their end goals. And that's this like thing that makes everything, that's what really tied this show up, is that like they deal with legit dysfunctional families in a fictional universe with fictional powers, but they also like, they don't make the kids out to be these outcasts, reckless idiots. Instead, they are put in a really bad situation because of the things that their father did to them, and because their father, like, literally, if you were this rich and you're this powerful, why don't you have constant security on your children and your children's children, right? So he's already a negligent father from a rich person's perspective, but he's also a negligent father from a father's perspective, because he didn't have the relationship with his kids because he was busy being a businessman in the business of heroism. And that I feel like there were so many distractions that he couldn't be the father he needed to be, because the world didn't want a father. They just wanted what they thought a father was, and they got that as long as the kids were perfect or were always new kids. And that was really well written.
What they wanted was obligatory like and subscribe remark, an image. They wanted the product. They wanted the show. They wanted the idea that the family was functional and that the kids were going to be forever young. And there's a whole bunch of implications that go into that. And that's honestly, it really just does. So what I like about it too is
really interesting. You kind of make me think of child actors.
Right. That's exactly
parents of child actors.
That's what I feel is it's also got a commentary on as well. Like there's a lot of different little pieces that this movie focuses on. And what I like is while it does create the idea, the concept itself is the reason I'm disappointed it's not a show and why I would enjoy watching a show. It doesn't have to like continue to follow these different dynamics. It could be its own thing. But I really got into the concept, the whole DNA matching, and that's how the powers integrated with the user. I was like, okay, that's somebody took the time to actually make that concept believable. And that's probably what I liked along with everything else about the fact that the story isn't even really about superheroes. It's about the dysfunction. It's a father-daughter story that was very unsuspecting. But it just comes off there's a lot of love in this movie. This is a project that everybody was excited to do. This is a project that people were happy. You could tell that everybody who worked on this was happy to come into work every day because they gave their best, and it shows. I mean, this is what non-corporate production looks like. This is what happens when independent media truly starts to take off, is now we're getting shows that Daily Wire isn't necessarily doing this because they want to make billions of dollars. I mean, maybe they do. I'm sure that, money is what kind of runs our world.
Speculate on other people's intentions, especially real people's intentions.
Right. But the point I'm getting at is they're doing this because they want to create stories that are free from the corporate monopoly. They don't want to conform to the rules. They just want to make stories. I mean, the banner page that I couldn't find, I was going to try and I was going to show it on the Daily Wire website when I got my subscription going, specifically says woke-free entertainment. And that's really what everybody's entertainment model should be, is yes, it's okay to put your message in, whatever it is. I don't care if I agree with your message or not. It's okay to keep it in there. It's just, like I mentioned with Severance, you can't insult your audience. You have to respect your audience. And that's what Severance does. That's why I like Severance. And that's what this movie did. Is it didn't even make you feel, it didn't try to push anything. It just told a good story. And that's the part of the lost art of storytelling that we don't have. Instead, it's like, here's this super powerful badass that's flawless. Don't you want to be like them? And I'm like, sure, that's what we should try to set our goal for every day. But that's not realistic. That's not a value you're teaching. That's an unrealistic, unhealthy aspiration to try and strive for. While perfection is a decent goal to have, you can't let obsession take it over. And this movie shows what happens when you do get a decent amount of money for a production. Because what they did was they took their budget, they stylized it to what their limitations were, and it's a beautiful work of art on so many levels. And it didn't have to do any of the traditional. It's not violent. It's one guy gets shot with a bullet.
There's a lot of graphic images in the last 10 minutes, I want to say.
I didn't even really feel they were that bad, but I guess that's how desensitized I've become. Thanks, Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
thank you, Suicide Squad.
A few points on that. I don't want to assume what Daily Wire's intentions are, just because I've done that enough and been proven wrong by a lot of people I thought actually were honorable. So like when it comes to a corporation, I just don't think corporations are capable of achieving honor. Though I recognize quality when I see it, and this is 100% quality. I think what Daily Writer did, whether or not it was intended, is they trusted that the people in charge of this product were going to release a quality product, and that's what they paid. Like, they got what they paid for. And I feel like what this movie does is it does take a lot of normal things you've seen from the superhero genre, from the Bankai genre, from the family hero genre, just from a lot of genres we've all seen before, and they don't necessarily flip them on their head, but instead use them to their advantage. They write like writers are actually trying to compete with other writers. They film like other low-budget studios are trying to compete with other low-budget studios. And that's where I think they really shined, is that they actually achieved that image of quality entertainment. Like, if you're going to claim to be an entertainment channel, an entertainment producer, you better be entertaining. And this was my absolute first introduction to their entertainment wing, and I loved it. I loved every bit about it. And I was reserved because I don't like the idea of woke or anti-woke media, because that's just woke media. You can't be woke about the woke and then say you're not woke. It's a circle. And
specifically, it's woke-free entertainment, which, you know, is what they're trying to sell. They're trying to market.
You have to know what all the woke people are being woke about to be woke-free. Otherwise, you're just slapping a label on a can and calling it good for you.
Well, I think the concept of wokeness isn't limited to a political ideology.
No, I don't think that's what I mean. You can't say it's woke free. It's like saying it's sugar free, but then putting aspartame in it. You're swapping one carcinogen for another.
But that's just what I mean. I didn't feel like there was a political pull one way or another with this.
I felt like there was a ton of political pull in this movie, but more from the terms of being your own individual. Like I said, like each of the kids, you get all of this like malignant and maligned imagery from each of the characters that are like talked about, whether it's the fans of the now adult child stars, and they're just like, what? We finally get to meet you. You were the one that was the child when I was a child, and I always dreamed of being you. And they're like, yeah, I'm really broken, emotionally devastated. I'm a broken human being. And they're like, well, that explains why you're here. But they didn't change their opinions of them. They were still just like, why are you betraying my image? But still, like, I got held up by my favorite superhero. Kind of like a win-lose situation, especially because like none of these people owned the museums. Like none of them feel like they were losing their property. All they were thinking is, oh, I'm gonna have to do more work tomorrow. And that's where I think the political comes in. Is this movie really shows that no matter how powerful you are, you're not good. You are you. And if you don't consciously make good, nice, appropriate decisions every single time, you are going to make people mad at you. You're going to hurt people. You're going to risk hurting people. You're going to put people at risk. And that's I think the political implications of this is it's the heroes didn't save the day because they are the main source of the problem of the day. Yet I feel like I had a resolved quality superhero ending. Weird. It's such quality writing and such a good message. It's about what you do today. It's about what you choose to do tomorrow actively that's going to decide whether or not you're a good person. You don't get to just bank on the goodness of yesterday.
Yeah, and that's what I really enjoyed about it was it changed it was good writing because it started with a story, then we had compelling characters, and then it was whatever else comes next. And that's really this that's honestly, if I was to basically cement the 10 commandments of writing, it would literally be the 3 commandments. Story, characters, everything else. And maybe even a 4th commandment of be smart with your message. I don't care what your message is. I really don't. I in the sense of, it's not going to bother me if you want to bring some commentary to certain subjects that are sensitive. You have to do it respectfully, and you have to do it intelligently. You can't just... I would even go so far as to say that, and again, I'm not trying to turn this into a political stream. This is just objective discussion. I would even go so far as to say that the Left Behind movies are basically a form of Christian wokeness. I don't like those movies. They are stupid because it's literally it's a silly concept, not to get too philosophical about it, but the entire idea of the movie is to just scare the hell out of you. It's fear porn. And so that same thing you can apply to literally any other product that's similar in that sense of, you know, it's just garbage. It's not good. It's not very good. Well, not well written. Your characters are not believable, and your concept is based off of one person's interpretation of a religious text. And so that's what I mean when I'm like anti-woke. I'm not saying like, you know, I'm specifically against your politics. I'm against the way you carry your politics. I'm against the way you carry yourself. And that's what I find most insulting about wokeism is just the fact that we're going to beat you over the head with our ideology. And I don't care what your ideology is. Just don't beat me over the head with it.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is you're saying you're not opposed to people having differing opinions. You just hate the way the people are using those opinions.
I wouldn't say I hate it, but yes, I'm very disappointed by the way some people try to get their views across, and I'm guilty of it too. I definitely have failed to get my point across properly, and I'm not saying this as a way of coming down on people or holier than thou, because I'm not. I'm just as screwed up as everybody else, and I'm certainly not perfect. I just know that we can be better, and we can tell better stories, and that's what Daily Wire is doing. Is there's nothing in here that the movie doesn't interrupt with a Ben Shapiro commercial. They don't inject any of their political garbage into
no Donald Trump ads.
Garbage, but they don't inject their political views into the movie like, you know, subliminally. They just told a good story.
I don't even know what city this was filmed in.
I don't care.
Like, I mean, fictionally or in terms of like the universe didn't. I don't remember hearing a city named. And I didn't care. You're right, and that's what made this one so fun. Is like I've been studying up on writing quite a bit for the last few years, and in my studies, there's so much emphasis on what you give to your audience, so as to keep them coming back for more. And I feel like this movie broke most of the rules while simultaneously following them, because I want to add one. So far, I think we're at 5 commandments now. I think number 5 is you must have lore/background. You have to know the entire existence of your fictional world/universe
Yeah, I
so
can
that
agree
you
with that.
can always control it. Because if you don't know where it came from, you're gonna create Star Wars. Like, Star Wars is, I'm always gonna go back to it because it's absolutely the thing that makes me want to be a writer. It's the thing that makes
Same
me
here.
want to create a universe in myself. And in that essence, the thing that Star Wars did is it created the potential for new universes while simultaneously being one of the most convoluted universes in modern history. And I think that's where this movie did itself some favors, is they had background for one family in this unknown city/world with all of the other background that they expressed on the world and the events that the kids did they used action figures and drawings. And I thought that was a hilarious low budget way
It was
of
very creative.
also being descriptive without all, like I said, like with, and you brought this up, like the idea of the whole DNA binding switch to give you a specific power according to you and you alone is amazing. It's fun. It's weird. But they didn't take the time to go, well, because DNA has these 6 fragments, we used this technology to do that. And then, like, if you're any kind of person in that science realm where you go, yeah, that technology doesn't do that at all, right? Instead, this show just goes, no, we made a button that does what we say it does. And we're not going to get convoluted with unnecessary details that make it more realistic. We're dealing with superheroes, chill. Like, I really do feel like this show was a few writers, few producers, few directors that said, we know what we're doing. Don't let the market team in here until we're done. They can market the finished product. They cannot manipulate the middle. And that's why I think this movie killed on such a low budget.
It was also written by the director, which can also
really
very
help.
much set the expectation of a good or bad series. Which, so it's obvious, and that's clear that he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly how he wanted this to be presented, and he basically not only. I'm always impressed with writer directors who successfully write something out and then put their vision on screen. I mean, you still have to make compromises. You know, when you write a story, this is probably, okay, another commandment, number 6 or something like it, is don't limit yourself on your writing. Write the story you want to say. Because I wrote a script once for a movie. It was going to be called Post Check. And it was basically going to be about a security guard doing post checks. And it was probably one of the biggest pile of dog shit I have ever written in my life. It was probably the worst thing that I ever came up with, because when I sat down to write it, I wrote it out within a budget. And when I did that, the quality of the story we wanted to try and tell suffered. I had a couple of funny jokes in there, but it just came off like a pile of crap, because it was a pile of crap. And I would probably revisit the concept again, but I'm never going to write a story on a budget. If someone tells me to write a story, hey, we have, $3,000, make a movie, I'm just going to say, well, I'm going to start with what I feel I would make a good story, and we can trim from there. It's easier to take away the fat than to have to add stuff and to have to make changes. And I mean, you see that in a lot of products. Solo could have been a better movie if Ron Howard had started it from the beginning. But they had to go back and do a bunch of changes and stuff because I guess there was some childish fart jokes that thankfully didn't make it into the final cut. And that's also where your quality can suffer. And so it seems like John McDonald, the writer-director, knew exactly what he wanted, and he did it. And he probably started with a story and then started to reduce the budget. That's why you make an excellent point. They do some of the story they tell with animations, and they tell it with other fun stuff that's just Yeah, the movie's great on so many levels. I think we're gonna use the 7-point scale because why not? And so introducing, this is the debut of our new 7-point scale for rating stuff. 7 just feels like a nice odd number to use instead of 5 like everyone else, or 10.
Well,
10's too much of a whole number.
3 on either side of the middle.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give this one, honestly, it's a solid 6 for me. 6 out of 7.
I'm gonna break it up into a few points. Writing 7 out of 7. Film 6 out of 7. 5 out of 7.
Just
because of
some
the
of our
saturation.
prototype metrics. Nice.
Well, mostly it's just between the two. Like the writing is 100%. 7 out of 7. Nailed it. It was a quality story. I enjoyed listening. I enjoyed watching. I enjoyed being a part of it. I didn't feel cheated. I didn't feel mistreated. I felt like I watched a film that I will tell people to watch, hence why I'm here, telling as many people as I can to watch. But as far as like, is it the most quality film you're going to see this year? Not even close. Not top 10. But is it something you will never regret watching, even in the future, because it uses the quality of 4K in the style of 80s, 70s, 50s? I don't know. It is old. Some of the scenes looked super old, but they did it in 4K quality. So if they ever, make 8K, it can still be enhanced and you're still going to watch the same movie I watched when I watched it. And I think that is something that hasn't happened lately. You've brought it up in the past with Star Wars and its CGI. They went in and re-released more CGI to cover the mistakes of old CGI. This movie, A, can't do that because it didn't feel like there was any CGI, and B, doesn't ever need to do any of that because all of its effects seemed part of the story. Like, even though they were very clearly supposed to be magical powers and, fantastic, they used... it's not childish because children couldn't imagine that. That's insane.
They used a lot of integration,
rudimentary. Well, I mean more in terms of like the teleporting power, as you can see in the trailer. It's a very cartoon-esque teleporting power, and they instead of making that feel cheap because they had to use the low-budget animation, they made it feel like it belonged in this world.
They owned it.
Yes.
They owned their budget. They flat out embraced and just went full on, hammer down. This is our product and we're going to own this story. And like I said, that's why I give it the high marks that I do just on the base level, because it's visually, it's fun to watch. It's creative. It was, we've seen the retro thing before, but this was a different kind of retro that they just used that to tell the story. It wasn't the primary focus. This isn't so much a concept film. It's an art piece. I mean, I disagree. I think it might be one of the best movies of the year. We'll see. Year is still 9 months out.
When I'm saying movies of the
8.5 months, rather.
I strictly mean visuals. That's why I only gave those two. The two metrics, and the difference between writing and visuals is purely like the only reason I have to lower the visuals is the saturation of the lights was killing me. It just felt too bright.
Well,
but that's it. Everything
fair.
Else about it, whether it was the low budget transitions or you called it retro, I don't think this was technically retro, because I feel like like I said with the whole Fallout point is Fallout has nothing to do with reality, and they made up their own retro TV to align with their timeline, but like that was modern retro, and I feel like this was a lot more that. It was like a modern version. It was more like if somebody described retro to somebody and had pictures.
Yeah.
Rather than if somebody actually lived in the 80s and tried to make a retro, or not 80s, in the 70s, in the 50s, and tried to make a retro recreation. Like, this really just felt like somebody liking pieces of retro and bringing those pieces back. And I think they did it perfectly.
Yeah, like I said, I really thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I'm looking forward to more products from Daily Wire. I think they've got a good flow and they got a good thing going, and it's going to be. I'm definitely excited to see the production quality. Granted, I think it's a different crew that's doing Terror on the Prairie, but the fact that Daily Wire is actually investing money in good products and they're doing it right. Again, disagree with their politics, their political shows. That's fine. You don't have to watch their politics. You don't have to follow that stuff. You can ignore that completely and recognize that this is a good movie. This just is. This is something I will probably watch again in a few months, just to maybe reconfirm. But I felt satisfied with this story. I was glad I spent the hour and a half. Like I said, I'm disappointed it's not a show. I think it would be an interesting concept to explore as a show in of itself. But like I said, you're not going to get the dynamic that you did with this movie. This movie is special in a standalone by itself. If it's the only product that's ever made, that's fine too. It's just, I was blown away. I'm looking forward to Terror on the Prairie with Gina Carano, and I think it's got a lot going for it. So, anything else on Hyperions? I think we've really touched on all the major points.
It's worth a view.
Absolutely.
If you've got access to it, if you are willing to get access to it, if you think you might want to watch it, you should.
Definitely worth burning a free trial on. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun. It was funny. It was heartwarming. It was just all around a worthwhile film. And I really hope it gets the views it deserves so that more people can watch it and they can create more like it. Like, I wouldn't mind if they released a updated budget version of this in a sequel where the characters do get upgraded uniforms. I wouldn't mind seeing updates to this as long as they keep the things that did so well, which is the old school stuff that made this universe a universe. It's a very small universe, but it's absolutely a universe that I want to continue to be a part of, and I will continue to support.
I would certainly enjoy it more that way, but I'm also okay if it's a standalone product and they just decide to maybe take some of the concepts and do something completely different. Because, like I said, the story is very unique. No matter what they add on to it, this is not going to change. I mean, hopefully it's not, because I really don't feel I need a prequel series to explain this movie or any kind of direct sequel. It would have to be smartly detached from this film. This movie deserves to stand alone in its own glory by itself. So, yes, I'm fine with expanding the universe, but just make sure that the rule is we don't touch the Hyperions movie. We just leave it alone. That's all I would have to say on that. So, John, why don't you go ahead and set us up for our next segment?
We are discussing GTA Online, aka GTA 5, aka GTA 5.3 or something like that.
I don't even know. Yeah.
It came out, on the Xbox 360, and then it came out with the remastered version that you had to buy again on the Xbox One, and now they're coming out with the remastered version on the PS5, Xbox Series X, and I guess the computers. And honestly, man, Rockstar, you're getting super greedy, and this time officially your greed got disrespectful. Anybody who's been on GTA, I don't know who's been on the longest. I know I've been on since the 360. I know I've bought GTA 5 Online at least 5 times from my own bank account. I bought it for the Xbox One for my brothers and I, the younger brothers of Parker and I's family. I bought it for my personal PlayStation 4. I bought it for my personal Xbox One after I sold my PlayStation 4. And then I bought it for a couple of my friends so that they could play with me. And now I feel for the first time that I wasted money. Because I'm basically an honorary club member, and yet I don't have access to the new console. When I do get access to the new console, they're going to ask me to pay more, even though I've been here this whole time supporting everything they've done. I've played every single heist at least once. I've played every single submission. I own almost everything that you can own in the game in terms of the build, the offices, the bunkers, the plane, like the cool planes. I don't own each and every one of them because I didn't put that much effort into making all the money. But like, I feel like I've been here for so long, and the one time that you're literally just offering a graphics update, you still think you deserve money. And while your employees, everybody that put any effort into this game deserves money, why don't you use all of the profits from the last 10 years to just pay them and not charge us? Like,
Yeah.
You want to keep us coming back, but like now GTA 6 better be perfect, because if it's even one iota in the direction of Cyberpunk, you're going to choke. And Rockstar, you deserve it if you do that. You're greedy. I'm calling you greedy. I'm still here. I'm still playing.
Honestly,
you hurt me, disrespected me.
Yeah, and I'm impressed that they managed to get this far with their. Let's just call this what it is. It's Grand Theft Auto dead cow. I mean, they are really just milking the piss out of this thing. And honestly, after the response to the definitive edition, the fact that they have the audacity to try and repackage Grand Theft Auto 5 for like the 7th time, I don't even want to play. I don't want to touch it anymore. And it's super grindy as is, and they barely do anything about cheaters, it feels like. And so it's just because they don't care. They have money. They have enough money to not care. But I think we may very well see, it's really unfortunate that they're not paying attention to the climate, because Blizzard thought they were invincible too, and they are. World of Warcraft is the lowest it's ever been in history because their product is garbage. And Grand Theft Auto is following in the same line. I honestly thought after Definitive Edition, they would have pulled their heads out of their asses and actually tried to get out a quality product. And instead, now they're just going to repackage Grand Theft Auto 5 again and make you pay for it. And already said it.
Go for it.
Well, you're already a diehard fan who's already given so much and bought all these different versions of the game throughout the years, and now you're finally starting to realize that they're basically going to keep shipping you the same crap sandwich and calling it something new until you stop buying.
That's really the worst part about this is they're not calling it something new. They fully acknowledge what they're doing. They don't go, this is GTA 5 Plus, where if you buy it on this new console, you get more good stuff. They say this is GTA 5 a little bit extra because the console can finally catch up. And the thing that like really pisses me off about it, and it's such a betrayal to the fans and to the customers, is that they legitimately know for a fact that the sales of the SSX, the sales of the PS5 are 100% stagnant, and nobody has this console. Yet they still have the audacity to keep selling this. Like, I don't care if you create it and charge for it, but the fact that you're marketing about it so that somebody with the XSX has to do a video about it to also market it so their channel, maintains the views that they're getting. Like, you literally are pitting the rich against the poor, and there's more of us than there is you. All we have to do to crush your entire game is just not play for 6 months. If everybody boycotts GTA 6 on release, you will literally implode because you're running negative on your profits. Most companies, most corporations, especially most AAA producers, are running on loans. All we have to do is wait till those loans kick in, you go bankrupt, and we get your game for free. or cheap.
Well, and I
We
also
can
want to
crush you.
clarify,
There's
too.
more of us than there are you.
Well, and I also want to clarify too. We're not wishing Rockstar to fail at all. We don't
No,
want
I'm
Grand Theft
saying
Auto Online
know
to fail.
your audience.
It's more that we're getting angry at the disrespect, and that's exactly what this is. You're repackaging the same game just on a newer platform, slightly updated visuals. I don't even think the trailer looked that good from what I'd seen. It's the same crap. There's no new areas. There's no new expansion. There's nothing. And the problem is, and I'm not saying this to come down on the audience at all. It's simply because you keep playing. You keep buying shark cards. They're just going to keep giving you, because they're not going to see it as an incentive to invest time and money in a new game if you're satisfied, which according to the data, the numbers, enough of the player base is still satisfied with this product. That's why they were able to just
was satisfied, they wouldn't have to kick so many modders from fixing their game. If the player base was satisfied, they wouldn't have to go to the community for all the outreach and all the things that the community has literally taken the time to fix. It was an outside third-party individual who just loved GTA, who found the source code for GTA, rewrote it, and was able to reduce load times by 30%. It wasn't Rockstar. It wasn't the industry. It wasn't the marketing execs, and it wasn't the CEOs, the writers, or any of them. It wasn't even the coders. It was an individual. So, get off your fake castle. You are still a gamer. If you own Rockstar, you play Rockstar games. If you are a part of Rockstar writing in the codes for Rockstar, you're a gamer. And gamers only exist because we wanted to break the system and be free of all the arbitrary BS. And now you've become the most grandiose deviation from that original intent. You are the opposite of rebellion. You are the very thing that all of your radio shows in GTA Online shit on. Rockstar. You have literally become the super greedy corporate FIB.
Yeah.
You deserve to be robbed of all your riches, and I'm gonna cheer with the main characters of the original game, which I forgot because I haven't played in that long. I only played the online, and I only jump in on the online so I can get the free car from the wheel spin, and then I drop off and go play a real game. Because you don't have any content, you have super long load screens, and you keep asking for money, and you give me very, very little reason to come into your world and spend it.
It's almost been 10 years, and there hasn't been any effort made to expand the game. We should have more play areas by now. There should at least be either Las Venturas, which they decided to, they were originally going to, I think the original plan was to put in Las Venturas and San Fierro and all the rest of San Andreas over time. Instead, they scrapped that and gave us a casino, which apparently was enough for players. And, it all boils down to a simple phrase that a good friend of mine says often, and I'm definitely going to apply it to Grand Theft Auto, is without respect, we reject. And unless the only thing right now that would definitely change my tune is if GTA 6 rolls out and it's that's where all the money went. If they took half the profits of Grand Theft Auto Online or more, and that was all being rolled into GTA 6, and it's going to be a huge, expansive sandbox game, and I get to port all my stuff over to it, then fine. It was worth it in the end. It was worth the 10-year wait to get there. But they got ripped for this a couple years ago when they repackaged GTA 5 again. And in the initial release for the PS5 and the X and the Series X, they got ripped apart for it. And they don't care. They think, honestly, players, I don't think you're stupid. I don't think you're dumb at all, because you just want to play a game that you love playing. And don't get me wrong, I have a flying DeLorean in Grand Theft Auto Online. I do enjoy playing it. There are aspects of the game I like. I don't necessarily blame you. I just want you to understand that Rockstar thinks you're an idiot. They think you are a gullible dumbass who's going to keep spending money.
I don't.
That's how
Again,
they
I don't
treat
want
you.
to. I don't want to assume other people's intent and feelings or judgments. But when it comes down to it, Rockstar has literally become the thing they set out to destroy. Like, you're Anakin, and you're not even Darth Vader yet, Rockstar, because you have, at the very least, given us reasons to come back. Like you said, the DeLorean, that one's fun. I like every time I watch or I hear about a new GTA release, I give it a shot. The the Prosecco heist or whatever it's called. I love that one. I beat it like 5 times now. And it's fun. The thing that I see as disrespectful, the thing that, like, this is why you can't blame the players. This is 100% on Rockstar. It doesn't matter what they think about the players. It matters what they're doing to them. Like,
They're exploiting them.
Nobody loves a bully. And finally, we can all talk about you. And you can't do anything about it. It used to be that if a local news media tried to, disparage GTA or something, GTA could sue them for libel. But we're not being
Depending on what the
libelous.
story hit piece was, yeah.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is because it was a story and it was a paid for writing and all this stuff. We're not being paid by anybody. We're coming at you as players. The people that you think are just 100% gonna buy everything you sell out. Turns out, buddy, we're not. And this time, one of us for sure is hurt. And I think that's what Rockstar really needs to do. Is, yes, there are people like Joe Rogan out there that say, get off the social medias, don't listen to the haters, stay away from the dissenters. If you're an individual content creator, absolutely. If you are a multinational conglomerate, get your head back in that sand, because we're actually yelling at you for justified reasons.
So to segue
you deserve to listen to social media.
Into our more happy segment. One of the things I actually review when I decide to pick a new game to play is I actually go straight to the negative reviews. I do read some of the positive reviews. Don't misunderstand me, please. But I really want to put focus on what people complain about, which brings us to our last segment, our initial thoughts on Black Desert Online. Black Desert Online is a Korean MMO that released in 2014, made it into the American market in North America in 2017. And John, why don't you share your first thoughts?
That character creator, it's distracting, man.
Definitely rivals Star Trek Online.
I
not as
unfortunately
good,
wouldn't
but
know
definitely
yet.
there.
I tried to get into STO this week, did not work.
We'll get
still
into that
working
later.
on it. But no, in terms of what this game is I really felt like it was a more close-up individual Diablo 3. I spent over 200 hours playing Diablo 3 with my friends when I graduated high school, and the dark something or other version came out. That the biggest DLC of that time. It was about a year after the original release. And I love Diablo 3. And getting into Black Desert Online, like, it is hard on the Xbox One X. It's definitely, it has its limitations. It's glitchy, choppy. It's free on Game Pass, so I will not complain about those things. I will just make any prospective audience members aware of those things. But again, it's free, so
Can you turn down the graphics on your Xbox?
I don't know. I'm not that savvy.
Well, because I'm running this on a 2080 Super, and I'm at max settings, and occasionally it drops frames, but not like. Honestly, the visuals are impressive. It's very similar to Lost Ark in that sense, that it's got a lot of visuals, as you can kind of see. This is actually, I believe, taken from the in-game engine, even though it's a cutscene.
Yeah,
I'm impressed with what I've seen. What I heard about when I read a lot of the negative reviews, one of the main consistencies was complaints about the grind. And
have any of you ever grinded
video games
before?
Are grinds. What?
To your comment, has any person that complained about the grind ever had to actually grind before?
There was
Because
one
this game
person
doesn't
that
have a grind.
there was one person that posted a negative review after 5,000 hours of play, and by the time I read it, they had 10,000 hours of play already clocked in. So at the 5,000 mark, they're complaining about the grind. They're complaining about supposed predatory practices, which I have yet to come across. Which even if those are there, another consistent review I noticed was people complaining about predatory practices. I think that's just a projection for lack of self-control, because I don't feel compelled to have to buy stuff. I do it because I want to. And is this game pay to win? Depending on what metric you use, arguably yes. But it's not exclusively pay to win. I would say that subscription-based games are more pay to win than this game. This game is pay to win in the sense that you get conveniences, you can get higher armor faster than everybody else, but you're just buying time. And so that goes to my issue about people complaining about the fact that it's a grind. All video games are grinds. Yes, even story-based video games are a type of grind. We don't realize it because, well, typically if you're in an immersive story and you're progressing through it, it's what you want to do. So the best way to describe it is it's been described, Hannah described it as kind of like an open world sandbox type game where your quests are very episodic. There isn't like an overall story arc going on, except if you start a season character, but even that story arc is just kind of more of a soft introduction. It's kind of just more of a get in and have fun and play whatever you want. But the combat is astounding. I mean, I feel very much like a badass when I'm playing this game.
We should state how we played the game. Obviously, I'm on Xbox.
Yes.
How are you playing it?
I'm playing it on PC.
Are you playing it console controller or
mouse and key?
Nice. I liked the combat in this game over Diablo because I didn't really get much past the tutorial because I got really, really hard into Elden Ring again this week. But I got up to like level 13 or something like that.
I think I'm tracking level 19 myself. What class did you go with?
I went with the Dark Knight. No, I went with the Sorceress. I watched this whole video on the character classes, and one of them said that she is one of the most difficult to learn, but if you figure out her skills, they're almost unparalleled, especially in PvP. And so me being the video game masochist that I am, that was the final selling point. No, this game is like, I watched a review of this game when it was suggested as a topic, and I immediately heard the pay to win thing, and I watched a few other videos by the same YouTuber just to double check that they weren't being overzealous in their definition, and I didn't think they were until I played the game and I realized I was watching the video of a kid. I've been playing games that you have to grind forever. Like, I was level 81.5 in Skyrim before the middle of the game. Grinding is not only a known trait of every video game you'll ever play, it's also called leveling up faster than the story so that you can beat the story quickly. And if you have a problem with that, stop trying to cheat the game, just get good. Like, in almost every game, like I've been studying too much of game design, almost every game is set for you to progress exactly with the game. If you play the content in the right order, your levels will match, you will achieve the goal you want to achieve. Now, this game offers you PvE and PvP, and that's where I think the pay to win metrics keep coming from, is like, oh, you can just buy the game, buy a bunch of costumes, and now you are a high enough level to kick ass in PvP. But to me, PvP died a long time ago. If I really want to actually deal with other people and their skills, I'll go on Call of Duty, because at least I have some skills there. But like, this game, as far as PvE goes, I have yet to walk into a place where I don't belong. And I run around and done all this really fun stuff and seen, and I mean, I ignore a lot of dialogue boxes. I don't care much for story that isn't in your
Story
face.
feels inconsequential in this game.
Yeah, I honestly, like, a lot of games like this, and in Elden Ring, honestly, I'm going to bring this one up just because I read this Vice article, and some idiot wrote that it's really boring and it doesn't have a story. And I say some idiot because if you watch literally any YouTube video on the story, you will find that it has hours of playable story content that lead to cinematics that can be followed very methodically, very easily. And if you're, good at combat, you'll be able to watch all of the Elden Ring story. But as far as like boring goes in Elden Ring, it doesn't exist. You run around the world, you fight, and then you run away if you're in the wrong room. And it's all about exploration. It's like I honestly feel like this is the only way my generation, our generation, is ever going to be anything close to Magellan or Marco Polo.
See, and you bring up a very good point about, this is what I'm starting to notice with a lot of reviews, is this is one of the things that we want to try and do with our show, is try to bring more objectivity and respectfulness. And I think we got a little carried away with complaining about Grand Theft Auto, but at the same time, our complaint wasn't about the game itself. The game is fine. It is. The
game's phenomenal. I love GTA 5. I love GTA 5 Online.
We specifically spoke about certain practices and the fact that they're just insulting the audience. And I think that's really what needs to be addressed here with stuff like that. I'm not interested in putting out a review with my personal opinion. I used to be when I was a kid, and I realized that it's not appropriate for me to downplay it, to basically trash talk somebody else's product just because of my personal opinion and my personal biases. That also is what prevented me from enjoying a lot of other games, was the fact that I would
prejudge.
I would just get so loyalist towards brands. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love Star Trek Online, playing for 12 years, going to play for 12 more years, if not more. But I'm not going to trash talk someone who doesn't like STO. And if someone doesn't like STO because they're not into it, that is a valid reason to not like the game. It is not a valid reason to give the game a bad review. And that's where I want to try drawing the lines of yes, while art is mostly subjective, it's not entirely subjective. And there is an objective way to look at various art and products. And that's what we're trying to inspire here at the Writer Brothers, is we want to give products a fair shot. And we want to give them a fair shot just based on what they present. And this game is different from a lot of MMOs. And that's what you have to be to stand out in the MMO market. You can't just show up with the same stuff that everyone else is doing and try to be a success. You got to take some risks. And so what Black Desert did is it Hannah says it plays like Skyrim, which I've never played that. I know, not a real gamer, whatever. I just never got around to it, and I've seen it played. I can appreciate the people that play it. I just never felt the need to do it myself, and now I'm already invested in this game, and I can at least appreciate the appeal through this product. And so I'm not going to say that, Skyrim's garbage because I'm not in it. That's literally the same as giving a negative review because you don't like the genre. That's like somebody who loves Lord of the Rings giving a review of Star Trek and saying it sucks because it takes place in space and has spaceships. That is an opinion. That is not an objective fact. That is just your opinion.
You're allowed to have an educated opinion.
But it's not fair to disparage somebody else's work based off of only your opinion. That's what we want to try. That's why we dissect shows. That's why we review stuff, because we want to look at, and that's why we're coming up with our metrics. We want to look at story. We want to look at characters. We want to look at writing. We want to give a fair shake on everything that we can. And that's why in our GTA review that we just had, we weren't being negative because, it sucks. We love the product. We want to keep the product successful. That's why I do reviews. My Star Cruiser review wasn't to jump on the bandwagon and trash talk Star Cruiser. It was to jump on the bandwagon and say, I want to go enjoy Star Cruiser. Please don't charge $6,000 for something stupid. And so I think that's what we're trying to do here. And so, while yes, some people might not like the grind. Some people might not like the way this game's presented. It's okay to not like things, but you can't hurt somebody else's product. When you put out a negative review, people do take that stuff seriously. And you want to try and not influence their decision, which some of those negative reviews, I have to give credit where due. Some of them I read were articulate in that point. They were like, look, if you like this stuff, you're going to like this game. But if you're looking for X, Y, and Z, just like I say with Lost Ark, the only reason I don't tell people to get into Lost Ark is not because I want it to fail. I want it to succeed. I like Lost Ark. It was a fun game when I played it. I just know that you're going to miss out on an audience that you otherwise wouldn't get. If I go and tell somebody who's really into transmog and character customization to play Lost Ark, they're going to play it for like an hour and they're not going to want anything to do with it. Because if character creation and individual identity is important to somebody, they're not going to play. And I'm not looking at it as, oh, don't ever touch Lost Ark. I've specifically told people, just wait till they release more custom skins. And so that's what I want to try and encourage and inspire within people. Like, yes, if you're into a game that's big on story, that's really just rich in lore, and this one does have a pretty rich lore, but it's just executed differently. If you want something that's immersive, that's an adventure, okay, this might not quite be the game for you. However, if you want something that's similar to Sea of Thieves, if you're looking for something that's independent, that you can just go do whatever you want while doing badass stuff like we see on the screen here, yeah, give it a try. I mean, it's free on Game Pass, so yeah, if you have Game Pass, absolutely, try it out. And if you don't like it, at least you tried it. Whereas, you know, if you're like me on Steam, $10, I could look at the trailer and I knew $10 was going to be my money's worth. I would get that out of it. And I already have it. I only have one character. And I'm already looking forward to playing all the other classes. And so, to get back into our game review, I do like that this game has gender-locked roles, because it does it in a good way. And what I mean by that is there are mirrored classes for each gender. Not all of them, but there's a couple of them that I don't think have them yet. However, that's what kind of makes the game more diverse in a sense, because instead of everybody being able to be the same, one, you might have to get out of your comfort zone. If there's a character type that you like, that you want to play, you might have to play a gender you don't normally play. So it kind of makes players have to break that comfort zone and experience different play style. Two, it empowers each role because it makes them unique. Because now it's like, okay, you don't just get to be, you know, badass what's comfortable for you. Now you have to work with somebody else that maybe has a different class that they bring to the table, although this doesn't have dungeon play. But that's what I think is good, is that it gives something special about each class while also empowering each of them. And so I think it's pretty well executed with that, and they're definitely being creative with and that's what I also like, is they're not direct mirrored classes either. They're very similar, but there's nuance about it. And again, that's just what empowers it to make it more unique, in my opinion.
I don't think your opinion is wrong, and I barely think of it as an opinion. I watched this really in-depth video explaining each of the classes and each of the skills, and apparently there's 2 classes for each class. As you get better, you can get the Ascension or you can get the Succession.
The Awakening and the Succession, yes.
There we go, the Awakening and the Succession. And I think what you stated was it is perfect. It doesn't... I didn't notice that there were mirrored classes. Let's put it that way. As somebody who came into this game with almost zero understanding, the whole reason I looked up the class video is because when I played Diablo, my favorite character was the Punchy Punch Monk. End statement. I just liked the Punchy Punch. I didn't care for the Sword and Shield, didn't care for the Ranger, didn't care for that. But in this game, there's like 18 classes or something like that, and it's like, okay, I want to know which one's going to be the most fun for a quick experimental run in this universe. But as soon as I started getting in that character creator, I think you're 100% right, especially when you're talking about things like transmog and our intention with this show. I don't think we, like, for me, my dream is to be the modern Nielsen. The unsolicited, biased in terms of like we're not getting corporate sponsorship. Apple TV didn't ask us to do any of this. Nobody has asked us to do any of this, and some people most likely will ask us not to do any of this.
Which
and I love that.
If you ask us not, and I just want to say real quick, if you ask us not to promote something, you can fuck right off.
Yeah, PG-13 warning, but that's 100% my sentiment. I agree, because you and I set out to do this because we have our own what we consider to be well-developed opinions of quality, and that's the subjective nature of our individual points, but the objective nature is to be heard by people that can actually affect change. And that's why I say, like, we're the modern Nielsen family and the modern Nielsen viewer, because, like, a lot of game reviewers I watch spend so much time trying not to be negative about anything, trying to skip over their negative sentiment. And that's why, like, for GTA 5 Online Part 3, you're not going to get any love. You're charging for a product that's barely an upgrade. In literally every other instance before the XSS, it was an update for free. And now it's a $20 update.
It's literally the product rollout scene in Tron Legacy, where, oh yeah, we changed the number on the box.
Exactly.
Except they didn't even change the number.
Not only did they not change the number, they very clearly said it's only for a select few of our customers, because we know for a fact nobody owns this console. And that was the whole reason why I bailed on Call of Duty.
Okay, coming up against the clock though, so I just want to, just to reiterate, we are trying to be as objective and fair as possible.
But also real fans, real viewers, real audience members. We are the customers. We have bought or used other subscriptions to view all of this quality content that we individually decided was quality before we ever started this show. And that, I think,
we do want to try and be positive, mostly positive. So we want to be constructive is our goal here. We're not going to be negative. But we aren't gonna, oh, this thing's great because I'm getting paid money to say it is. No. And that's selling out. We're not for sale in that regard. Now, if we like your product and you want us to promote it more, we can talk about it. But we're not gonna. We don't bend to the mob. We don't do any of that. We're here.
And we're not even a mob. We're not going to inspire a mob. I bring up the whole thing about Rockstar not understanding its audience because they don't understand that the audience destroyed Cyberpunk, but then also saved Cyberpunk. The outrage that came from the Cyberpunk release is the only reason Cyberpunk came out with anything good ever since. Mm-hmm. And that is what I think Rockstar needs to know, is that no matter what you do, yes, we may buy it. Yes, we may want to play it. But if it sucks, we will ruin all of your corporate shares. Yeah.
This class right here, by the way, shifting back to Black Desert, is I honestly found this one fascinating, and I may try it again soon. I really kind of dug this because this was something that was, I don't think I've ever seen it before. A hula hoop as a weapon. Yeah, it's kind of a little cheesy, but it's also,
dude, it's not cheesy.
Cool concept.
I've seen a lot of EDM dancers that can dance this quality with a hula hoop. And so I could theoretically imagine a martial art where a hula hoop is the, combat weapon, kind of like Kempo with the bow staff. And that this one made me even think it's less theory, more lost art.
It looks like, that
was really cool. I didn't even see that one that well.
There are so many classes. I took like at least an hour and a half just to pick a class because I was excited for most of them.
The transmog is so quality.
Yeah, it is.
The character creator in this game is difficult for sure. You got, especially when you're messing around with a controller, doing your ups and downs and lefts and rights. It messes with everything. You don't get the mouse to just click the part you want to change, and so you have to adjust. You have to figure it out. But
I think this was the. Is this the witch that's on?
This is the witch. Yeah.
Yeah. This one's another cool class. The witch and the wizard both are just. I'm looking forward to trying them too.
I will say though, from what I heard, they're supposedly underpowered comparatively to the rest.
Well, that's the price you pay for the convenience of playing ranged is, you're kind of stuck that way.
Well,
But
this game is a lot of fun. I think I think the diversity in the class is not only in the fact that they're gender locked. I think that I'm grateful for it because
yeah,
when playing a game that I want to get into, usually like Elden Ring, for example, is a really good one. I really wanted to get into that one. I really wanted to understand the character classes and everything like that. And then every beginner's guide video I watched said, don't care about the classes. But then when I got onto Black Desert and I looked up the beginner's guide for this one, it was like, there is a class for your preferred play style based off of all the MMORPGs you've ever played. One of them is close enough to that you're gonna have a comfortable time transitioning. Not a good time, not a great time, not the best time ever. Comfortable. You're gonna catch on quickly and you're gonna figure it out faster than you thought you could.
Yeah, no, the character customization is really good. The outfit diversity could use some work, but at the same time, I got into that. I picked up an outfit and some dyes, and there's a lot of combinations regarding the color changes and the different mix and match combos. So it's not like Star Trek Online. So Star Trek Online still has it beat as far as clothing goes. That's why STO's custom options are still, as far as custom game and casual friendly, STO is still the king, and we will give them a block very soon. But for what this offers and what you get out of it, it is worth trying out. I mean, the combat, look at this, and it flows so smoothly. Like, that's the problem. I can't get into DC Universe Online is because it feels so clunky, and I'm like, ugh. Like, I like the flying around aspect, but this, you're like jumping around. I mean, depending on what class you play, I do the Corsair. You're jumping around, you're like making slashes and doing combos, and it even shows you like combo bars that you can. This is what I thought was cool, was that it has a little list of attack abilities, and that's really awesome because it shows you what you can do. But I think some of my favorite aspects of this game are just the basic quality of life that this offers. The auto running, the fact that you can literally press a button and walk to your objective and get up and go get a drink while you're transiting.
7 out of 7 on that one.
That is,
for sure.
Yeah, solid quality of life.
One of my favorite mechanics ever.
The only time I've seen that was Star Trek Online, but that made sense. You plot a course for your ship, it flies you there. Okay, duh. Your character literally walks to your objectives for you. It's pretty awesome.
Press left trigger and you can sprint for him. So if you need to one hand for a second, you can do that.
I can, on the computer, you can just toggle auto run, and it'll just run by itself.
That's even crazier. Yeah. Like, to me, that's the stuff I love, is like games that acknowledge that there are certain mechanics that suck, like running across an open world. But then when you take the time to make that travel easier, like automated, like everybody's talking about AI cars these days, right? Like, finally we're just now getting AI characters.
Yep. And unfortunately, this brings us to our closing statements, as we are now finally up to the end of our 2-hour time slot. Any cool weekend plans, John? I myself am playing video games and still being poor.
I myself am still playing video games and being poor, but I am going to enjoy it. I love video games. I love entertainment. I'm excited to get back into Elden Ring. I wish, the corporate elite would finally realize that we need money to be able to survive and enjoy our lives, so we don't have to spend hours complaining about them to make money.
I don't really want to complain about them as much anymore. I just want to make my own way. That's why we're doing this show.
Absolutely. And
anyway, with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude our broadcast. If you missed tonight's show, it'll be up on the podcast channel soon. What are we on for podcasts, John? I know we're on Spotify. Are we on Apple yet?
We are not on Apple yet. I'm still working on that, but we're on Spotify and whatever else our RSS feed auto allows me. I was able to get us processed onto the majority of podcast distributors, and still working on Apple. It's an internal issue on my end, but I will figure it out very soon. Spotify's where it's at. If you want to like and subscribe us on there, give us a rate. Like and subscribe us here so that we can finally show our family we're cool.
Yep. Here on YouTube or on Twitch. And of course, we are also on patreon.com/The Writer Brothers. We do have options to help support our work. If you do believe in supporting independent content creation, please give us any help. But we do also offer some various consulting services that we can discuss. But with that, we are approaching our final 2 hours. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And my name's P.D. York, reminding you, until next week, don't be a dick. Good night.